Thank you for joining us virtually today. With us today, we have Sue Gregory, an outpatient dietitian, and she's going to be talking about caregivers, stop for fast food. So, Sue, I'll turn it over to you. And if we want to get started, I just do ask that if everyone can mute themselves. Right now, we are going to record this. That way, then we'll post it on our website. You can go back and view it later. So if you can mute yourself, and then we'll save the questions for the end. So Sue, I'll turn it over to you.
Okay, welcome everyone today. I'm Sue Gregory, and I am the outpatient dietitian here at Altman Hospital, and I'm happy to do this presentation today. This was a presentation that one of my colleagues shared with me, and I think it's a really great bit of information that we're going to kind of go through today. And we're going to try to focus on how we can help caregivers work on nutrition and just some of the overall aspects of healthy eating. So we're going to go ahead and start. And one of the things that we're going to try to do is talk about how we want to stop and think about what we can do to be a little bit healthier. So we're going to talk about our nutrition for you, the caregiver. We're going to talk a little bit about some of our eating habits, and then we're going to try to talk a little bit about some optimal food choices and some suggestions that hopefully we can make for people who need to eat quickly or maybe need some tips that way also. So our first stop, you need to think about nutrition, and first let's focus a little bit on you, the caregiver. So first of all, the little car zoomed by. I always tell people you need to think about nutrition the way we think about putting gasoline into a car. So we know that if our car doesn't have gasoline, it's not going to run. And if you yourself don't have the proper nutrition, food is a way of fueling your body. And with that proper nutrition, then you're going to have the energy to tackle the projects that you need to get through your workday, and all of the things that you know that you've got on your list to do today. And sometimes that to-do list is long. And so we all have to take deep breaths as caregivers and realize that yes, some days we're going to tackle that list, and some days it's going to be a little more than we thought we could get accomplished. So think about a time that you know that you have been successful with tackling all of your outcomes, and what did you do to be successful with that? And I bet you didn't realize it, but maybe part of that success had something to do with eating that day, or making sure that you did stop and take a little time to make sure that you were fueled up properly. So when we talk about some of the things that we want to make sure that you're doing through your day, make sure that as the caregiver, when you're thinking about your nutrition, you take a little bit of time to do a little bit of planning. And what I mean by that is you do need to think a little bit about how your day might go, or maybe how your week is going to be. And so a lot of times people say, I don't know how to plan a menu, or I'm not sure what to do with my meals this week. But I think all of us have a little bit of skill that we're not giving ourselves credit for. So for instance, we know that we're going to have Thanksgiving coming up pretty soon. And when it's time for Thanksgiving, what do we all do? We stop and we plan out a menu. And so all of us sit there and think, well, what should we have for Thanksgiving if we're going to celebrate that? Is somebody making the turkey? Is someone making ham? Are you going to have mashed potatoes? Did somebody think about a vegetable? So we do have those skills, so don't be quite so hard on yourself. Menu planning is as simple as thinking about what you do when you're planning a birthday event or a holiday menu. So you can do that. So pat yourself on the back it's not a special skill that you have to acquire. So we can all work together on thinking about how we want to get through our week. As a dietitian, I always have to refer people back to menu planning and what can you do to make that easier. Hopefully some of you have seen this before. This comes from My Plate, and it's just a really nice way to think about how you want to work your day or your meal, or even if you want to start with one meal at a time. But we do encourage people to look at the whole plate. Think about, are you incorporating everything that you can to be a healthy person into your diet? And because we know that nutrition fuels our body, like we mentioned, you get about 50 different nutrients from eating a well-balanced diet. And the way that we can keep track of all those nutrients is by dividing our foods into categories. So when we're eating from our fruits, our vegetables, when we're eating our grains or our breads and cereals, our protein, and then some dairy, we know that's a great way to get all those different nutrients. And if we're incorporating a wide variety of foods, then we're really able to accomplish that without having to rely as heavily on supplementation to get those nutrients in. So again, our first nutrition stop is trying to help you, the caregiver, find that balance through the day between eating too little or eating too much food through the day. So we really want to make sure that what you're trying to think about is eating. And I know it seems kind of simplistic to say, but the people who feel the best, or we get our most energy, when we try to eat about the same time every day and about the same amount of food every day. And that sounds like it's really easily said, but it's not always easily accomplished. So as you move through your day and your work week, do stop and think about how we would want you to do that. And I always refer people back to thinking about what we do in the hospital. And hopefully nobody gets in the hospital, that's not what I'm saying, but if you do ever think about how we feed people here, we start with breakfast. And usually we're serving breakfast 7:30, 8 o'clock. And then again, we go to lunch around 11:30, 12, maybe some people get fed around 12:30. And then again, we start dinner between 4:30, 5:30. Why do we pick those times? I tell people all the time, it's not so the dishes get done. It's because we know that we need to get your body fueled for the day. And we also know that if we keep you on a schedule, eating about the same time every day, you're going to feel better. But more importantly, we know that a well-balanced meal only stays in your system about 4 to 5 hours. So if we fed you breakfast at 8, you should be getting hungry by noon. You're starting to run out of fuel. And if you ate at noon, you should be getting hungry again by 5 o'clock. So we're trying to achieve that balance between when you're needing to be eating and getting enough food to fuel you. And that's really important for us to even think about when we're not in the hospital. So we're going to talk a little more about that, but try to think about your balance through the day, what times you are eating, and really we do want to encourage everyone to be eating 3 meals a day and not to be skipping and getting overly hungry and putting it off. So if you're wanting a little more information just about what you can do or nutrition that would be helpful for you, we do recommend people look at the Dietary Guidelines for Americans. These are due for revision in 2020, so we are expecting the new guidelines anytime. We don't know if they'll modify them greatly. Usually they tweak them every 5 years a little bit, and so the overall message will stay fairly consistent. So these are just the guidelines that have been out currently, so you may have seen these. If you haven't, this is just kind of a brief summary of what we're recommending right now, that everyone tries to follow some healthy pattern of eating across their entire lifespan, that we do want to encourage everyone to get that great variety when they eat. However, we don't want to overemphasize getting our calories from sweets or added sugars or the bad fats, the saturated fats. And we want to be careful with our sodium intake. The big one that they focused on this past 5-year period was trying to get people to incorporate healthier beverage choices. So we do really know that people feel better when they're well hydrated, and we do encourage people to drink lots of water as opposed to sweetened drinks. And we want to make sure that we're supporting healthy eating for everyone. This is a little bit of something that I've already mentioned already. We know that if your eating is very sporadic, or if you're doing a lot of meal skipping, that eating can cause some consequences. And one of the things that a lot of people complain about is not having any energy or just feeling very tired. But we also know that if we're not really taking care of our nutrition, that we may also feel that we can't focus as well. Or some people may complain about being more irritable. Some people who aren't paying attention to how they're eating have other issues. Maybe they're eating a lot of foods that they can grab quickly that are very greasy or very spicy. Maybe they're having issues more with bloating or indigestion, gas, discomfort that way. So we really do want to make sure that we're looking at the kinds of choices that we make so that we stay as healthy as we can, so that as you are the caregiver, that you then will be able to do the best job that you can when you're working with your loved one or your patients that you're taking care of. So we really want to make sure that, again, you don't get those hangries. A lot of times people ask about snacking. We're going to get a little bit into that. Some of you have work schedules where you may be eating breakfast very early, and you're going to go more than my 4 or 5 hours before you're fed again. So absolutely, is it appropriate to have snacks? And we know that your body might need that, and even the people that you might be caring for may need snacks. So we'll get a little bit to that as we go through our presentation here today. When we do our second stop here today, some of this I think is information that many of you already know. These are things that I shouldn't really feel like I have to preach at anyone about. All of us are guilty of this, even myself as a dietitian. Sure, we want to have treats and special events, but we have to make sure it doesn't become the everyday constant. It needs to be sometimes reserved for special times, but not an everyday occurrence. But can you name 2 unhealthy foods? Sure, most of us have something that they know that is their comfort food, or maybe it's something that they realize isn't the healthiest, but they like. So I think most of us can pick 2 foods that maybe we know that we're guilty of going to. So that's a very common thing. So it's okay to realize that you do it sometimes. Skipping meals. I think most of us realize that when we skip meals, that's probably not a good idea. I think we realize that, yes, we know we should be eating our meals, and we realize that some days are worse than others, but we try to get them in. try to see what you can do. And snacks, like I just mentioned, snacks are not a bad thing. We really understand that some people's bodies do best, maybe not with 3 traditional meals a day, but some people might actually work better with 5 or 6 small meals. And so it is appropriate to think about snacks. And some people are overwhelmed with big plates of food. And some of you might be caring for people who are in that situation. It's just overwhelming if you put a whole plate of food in front of them, and it might be better for them to manage it in a smaller amount. So snacking can be useful. So let's not beat it up, but we'll talk a little bit about some snack ideas too. I think most of us realize that we probably shouldn't eat a donut every morning for breakfast, but maybe they need to think about your week. Maybe you can eat a donut one day of the week, but let's not get into a habit maybe where they should happen every single morning. And that's the same thing with the next point. Some people are really good about having food in their home and not getting into it. Other people, if it's in their environment, it's harder for them to control. So, you know, you need to realize what kind of a person you are. Are you the kind of person that can have something in the house and it doesn't bother you? Or if you buy it, will you eat it? So is it better than, if you want one of those choices, to buy one portion and not have a whole bag? So some people can't manage a whole bag of chips in the house, but they can manage to buy one vending size portion, enjoy it, eat it, and then they don't have to be tempted by going back and back to get another handful, or wait a couple minutes and get a third handful and get into that type of situation. So I've already alluded to why we're really wanting you to eat regularly throughout the day. When we work with people who are really struggling with this, we do encourage them to journal, or to maybe even keep a food log. Sometimes I do encourage people to get their calendars out and try to look at their whole week. Most of us keep a calendar somewhere on their phone, or if they do it the old-fashioned way, on paper, and you kind of can know maybe what are going to be your more difficult days. Are these the days when I have more appointments, or I need to do things after work, things that are coming up? And so those might be days when you know your eating might be a little off. So on the days that maybe are smoother for you, maybe more routine, then those are the days that you have time to make sure you're really eating optimally, getting the nutrition in those good days, and maybe even working ahead for the day that's going to be more difficult for you. But when we eat regularly through the day, like I just mentioned, whether we're doing our 3 meals, or if you do need to break it into the 5 or 6, what we're really doing is fueling your body through what your body primarily wants to use as its energy source, is carbohydrate. And carbohydrates get really beat up by everyone, but they really are our primary fuel source, and it's what we need to all function. And it is the primary fuel source not only for our body, but for our brain and our brain cells. So all of us, as we go through the day, are needing to take in carbohydrate, but as a nutritionist, as a dietitian, what we want to emphasize are eating a healthier load of carbohydrates and making good choices with our carbohydrates. So we'll talk a little bit about why we want those whole grains and that fiber. Those are our healthier carbohydrate choices. And we know that when we do eat regularly through the day, and we do consume some carbohydrate at each meal, maybe along with our fat and protein, that it will help keep our blood sugars more optimal, it will actually help to stabilize our blood sugars, and that should keep us feeling better. That should have more energy for us. It should help our mood. We won't be quite so cranky and tired. And really, what that should help then is for us to feel that overall we're able to get through our day a little more optimistically, perform better, or just feel less sluggish. So please don't think that you need to take all your carbohydrates out. I know that that's a very common trend right now. We really do encourage people to incorporate carbohydrates through their day. And for those of you who work with patients or are caregiving for people with diabetes, carbohydrates becomes a very big focus for that education for them, understanding how we want those carbohydrates to be more consistent and how we want to keep them balanced through their day to help stabilize their blood sugar, so that they also will have a better performing day. A lot of times people want to ask about cardiac, or we want to focus a little bit on fats, and we do want to include some fat into our diet. We don't want to take it completely out, but we want to make sure that if we're putting some fats into our diet, we're going to do this in a healthy way. So we know that some of our seeds and nuts are actually very heart healthy and can contain a lot of our omega-3 fatty acids. And so we do want to incorporate some of those. Those omega-3s do help with our brain function as well. And a good example would be walnuts. Some of you may have used flaxseed or are familiar with flaxseed. A lot of people may have tried some salmon. So if you're consuming those types of food choices, you're going to be getting some heart healthy fats. And those omega-3s sometimes are very studied, and depending on whose research you're reading, we know that there might be some potential for people who are deficient in omega-3s to perhaps have greater issues with depression or anxiety. But we do know overall that omega-3s will not be the type of fats that should impact our overall cholesterol. So when we talk about cholesterol, we talk about, maybe it's oversimplistic to say good fats and bad fats, but the omega-3s go in with your good fats. So we do want to make sure that you understand it's good to have some of the good fats in your day. I think most people are also aware that along with eating optimally, we want to make sure that we get some vegetables into our diet. And if you're not a vegetable person, then maybe for you it's fruit. But we really want to make sure that we're getting those good carbohydrates, and vegetables, if they're not overly starchy, are lower in carbs, but can be very high in fiber, and as also our vitamins that are a great source in our vegetables. So we're going to be getting things primarily like vitamin A and vitamin C, but our fruits and vegetables also give us some of our other nutrients, our copper, our zinc. We are also going to get some manganese. So we do get a lot of great nutrients from our fruits and vegetables. Our goals, when people ask us about fruit and vegetable intake, we'd like to see at least 3 to 5 servings a day with fruit and vegetable intake. So sometimes people will split those up a little bit, 2 or 3 servings of fruit, 2 or 3 servings of vegetables. But we really are wanting people to think about fruits and vegetables, not just something that you eat at a meal, but when we talk about snacks, maybe that's a great way for you to get an extra serving in by thinking about having a piece of fruit when we're going to do a snack, or maybe some vegetables cut up as also a snack choice. And again, depending on research, we do see sometimes where people who have higher fruit and vegetable intakes may be better able to work with some of the stress. One of the things that we also want to do, especially if you're a caregiver, is make sure that not just the person you're caring for gets enough fiber in their diet, but that you get that fiber as well. So if you're caring for someone who needs more fiber, or if you just feel that you yourself want to get fiber, it is important for all of us to get that fiber in. Women need about 25 grams of fiber a day, and men need about 38 grams of fiber a day. What that comes down to, if you're looking at it more from a calorie source, for every 1,000 calories that you consume a day, you need about 14 grams of fiber. So those are some of the guidelines. We know that some people can get this a little easier. Obviously, if you're caring for someone who has some chewing issues, it might be a little hard for you to expect them to eat nuts. But we can still get fiber from things like oats and oatmeal. Beans are an excellent source of fiber. If you're able to consume any of your fruit with the skin on it, don't take the peel off that apple. That's what you need for the fiber. And our vegetables, one of our better examples there would be if you're making a baked potato, scrub it down really good, make sure you've cleaned it, but then eat that skin on that baked potato so that you're picking up that fiber. We consider a good fiber choice to be anything with more than at least 4 grams of fiber per serving. So if you're a person that likes to look at labels, that is a guide that you can use. Some other examples, an ounce of almonds would have about 3.5 grams of fiber. About 1/2 cup of blueberries or raspberries or blackberries might be roughly 4 grams of fiber. If you are eating a lot of bran cereals, 1/3 cup of bran cereal could have about 8 grams of fiber. For people who like the beans, about 1/2 cup of cooked beans would have about 7 grams of fiber. So it is possible to work some of those choices in, hopefully, through your day. And again, we know that it may also have other benefits associated with just making you feel a little healthier, more alert, and maybe even a little helpful with managing some of your stress as well. When we're also talking about good nutrition, we also have to make sure that, as I mentioned earlier, we're keeping our bodies well hydrated, and we really do like water. As dietitians, we know that fluid is important, but we really want to encourage people not to be over-consuming caffeine. Caffeine will affect people differently. However, we know overall that if we're trying to encourage people to manage some of their stress or maybe even anxiety, that caffeine for some people does increase that. And so we don't want to see more caffeine making people more jittery or more anxious. We also know caffeine is a diuretic, so it will dehydrate you. So we want to make sure that you're staying away from it, especially as you're getting closer to sleep or to bedtime. We don't want it to interfere with your ability to get a good night's rest. Some studies associate caffeine intake with making poorer food choices or increasing your appetite, potentially leading to weight gain. And some people will see that it may impact them by making them feel more hungry, which is, again, People react to caffeine a little bit differently. I'm not saying that people can't have some caffeine, but what we want to make sure is that you're not depending on it to get through your day. We'd like to see you get your energy from some of your foods and some of the food choices that you make, as opposed to trying to get through your day by trying to consume a whole bunch of caffeine to try to give you what you need to get through that day. We always want to put in a healthy food choice if we can. So some of the things that we want to try to do is, if you're super busy and you're like, there's no time for me during my day to just stop and have a meal, or I'm going from a very busy, hectic day and I have to rush, try to think about what you can plan for. So if you can't plan to stop and really eat through the course of your day, maybe you can plan times to make some healthy snack choices. Again, some people do better eating 3 or 5 mini meals as opposed to our traditional big meals. But you still need to think about what you can eat at those times. I also like people to think about planning their grocery lists. It really does help you if you have a plan when you go to the store to shop, and you kind of can know ahead of time what kind of food choices you need to get in your basket for that week, so that you can feel that you don't have to rely on a drive-through or a pickup all the time for your food choices. I like nuts. They are, again, they can be a good source of omega-3s and the good fats. They're a little boost of protein and energy. But what we do need to keep in mind is that we're talking small portions, an ounce, maybe is 5 or 7 nuts, not cupfuls. We don't want to cause a lot of weight gain, but they do give people a little boost. Some other ideas that people might be able to do through their day for snacking, if you can take a piece of fruit with you. Again, remember, we want to work our fruit and vegetable intake up. Can you eat an apple? Do you have time to work a pear in? Can you get something like air popped or microwaved popcorn? Do you like raw vegetables cut up? Things that can fill you up with a little bit of fiber, maybe give you some crunch. You notice on this slide, I tried to incorporate some snack ideas that are crunchy. If you find that you're doing your snack in the middle of the day and you still have a long time to go before you're going to get to your next meal, you might need to pair that snack with some protein. So you might need to eat a piece of string cheese along with that apple. That way you can get that protein in and hold that snack in your system a little bit longer. If you find that you need a little bit of a heartier snack, then maybe you do need to incorporate some things like some hummus. If you like that, you can pair it with some wheat pita or maybe with some raw vegetables. Hummus is good with things like carrots. Some people might make a little veggie pizza out of a whole grain English muffin. If you like whole grain crackers and you're wanting to work some omega-3s into your diet, tuna is a great idea. Make sure you don't overdo mayonnaise and make it too high calorie that way, but the nice thing about tuna is sometimes you can just get it in those packets that you can rip open easily. Try to get it packed in water. If you're worried about the calories, you'll find fewer calories than if you get it packed in oil. And again, some people like to have alternates to peanut butter, so your nut butters like sunflower butter or almond butter can work well with a piece of whole grain bread, toast, or even some crackers again. This is a energy bite recipe. So sometimes people want to make their own little recipes that freeze well, that they can take out of the freezer and carry with them. And again, this is one that uses some of the dark chocolate. So again, if you need a little bit of a chocolate fix, we're trying to promote a little bit more heart benefit by putting in the darker chocolate. And so you get those flavonoids there. And so this is a little recipe that some people might enjoy. There's all kinds of other little bite recipes that sometimes people can work with as well. Just a little bit about the flavonoids. A lot of times people do ask, what should I make sure I get into my diet? This is just a way of trying to encourage you to, as some people have mentioned, or you may have heard, eat the rainbow. So when you're trying to get a lot of nutrition in and healthful benefits, and maybe the effects of some things that might help with inflammation and just maybe even some cancer protection, we do encourage you to eat all of the colors. So that goes back to getting our fruits and vegetables in. But think about, are you eating things that are orange? Are you eating things that are purple? Or are you eating things that are red? Are you getting something green on your plate? So we really want to try to do that as well if you're trying to help your overall balance of nutrition. And a lot of those research out there does say that, you know, you'll be picking up your antioxidants that way, and you're getting those phytonutrients, which, you know, are found in our fruits and vegetables. And so they continue to study this area, but we really do want to make sure that people are aware that that's a good place to get some of these foods. And so when we talk about those colorful foods, you can see some of the ideas here for just things that you may want to also include if you're thinking about your menu for the week, or if you want to put a snack in place, incorporating some of these things. Some plums, some broccoli, you know, maybe you're a person that's tired of eating carrots, you know, don't forget your peppers. So there's just some different ideas here for trying to eat colorfully. This is a little bit of information about that recipe that was up, the Energy Bite recipe. It does show you a little bit about the calories. You'll see some protein that is tried to be incorporated, and a lot of what we would put in as the unsaturated fat is your heart healthier fat, with a little bit of carbohydrate and trying to get that 4 grams of fiber in to try to get a good fiber source as well. Again, not to beat it, but just to try to encourage people to think about things that are fast for them. The peanut butter and the apple, the oranges with yogurt, more ideas using veggies with cottage cheese or string cheese again, some of your heart healthy mixed nuts, maybe make some trail mix if those are things that you feel that you can carry with you. One of the things that I like to encourage people to do is try to make a plan for how many times a week that you are comfortable eating out. We really want to encourage people to control what their food is. So the best way to control that, the salt, the calories, the fats, is to try to force yourself to eat more of the foods that you're preparing as opposed to foods that someone is preparing through a carry-out. And we really do want people to be able to make some healthier choices. So think about if you have the time to do a meal prep night. Maybe that's going to be Sunday, maybe it's going to be Saturday, when you can cut up some veggies, or you can bag up little bits of nuts. And so that in the morning when you're rushed, you might be able to just grab one of your bags of little things or pieces of fruit that you can take with you if you're busy going from throughout your day, so that you can grab those things much easier for you. So we really want you to try to listen to your body and make it a priority. Plan for as much of your meals as you can by trying to eat regularly, trying to incorporate some of those healthy fats. Think about your vegetables, your fiber, watching your caffeine intake, and thinking about your snacks as well. So I thank you for listening with me today, and we'll turn it over to see if there are a couple quick questions that we may have some time for.